Hey there, today I'm going to be talking about a character teased over a year ago when the Brotherhood was first released, that is finally about to land on store shelves. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Alright, the Juggernaut is finally coming, and bringing with him years of iconic lines that you will now get to shout across the table at your opponents as you use his different attacks and superpowers. And as a Magneto fan and Brotherhood player, I have to say the hype is real. But before we dive in, I want to go ahead and talk about the guild sponsor, TRex Games. They have quite the selection of MCP items that you might need, and give you 20% off of all your pre-orders through them. As well, you can use the code TRITEXGGCP5 at checkout for an extra 5% off of all your MCP items in your cart. It is also thanks to TRITEX that I get to do a monthly giveaway. All you need to do to enter is be subscribed to the channel and leave a comment on a video that comes out in that month. And because I took off the month of December, today I'm going to be pulling for November's winner at the end of this video. But enough about all of that, let's talk about the Juggernaut. He has the alter ego of Cain Marko, has a whopping 8 stamina, moves short, but he is on a 65mm base, so he's still getting around pretty quickly. He is also size 4 and has a threat value of 5. His defense line has 4 physical, 3 energy, and 5 mystic, so that's a pretty nice looking defense stats thanks to his helmet padding that stat. And his first attack is a pretty average looking strike. It is a physical attack with a range of 2, strength of 5 for no cost. It has the usual line about gaining power equal to the damage dealt, and if you get a wild, Juggernaut can push the target away short. Having the option to do it is really nice for him in case he needs them to stay close to throw them with a different ability, or attack them again, or any number of situations that may arise. His other attack is also physical and is called I'm the Juggernaut. It has a range of 2, strength of 7 for 4 power. If you happen to get a wild in the role, you may immediately use the Nothing Stops the Juggernaut superpower without paying its cost. So before I can really talk about this attack, I feel like we have to know what Nothing Stops the Juggernaut does. And it is an active power that costs 3 to use, so I'm going to read the rules and then simplify it all in a sentence, if I can, I guess. It says, this character is pushed short. It does not stop if its movement contacts a size 3 or smaller interactive terrain feature. Instead, the contacted terrain feature is destroyed, then this character continues being pushed. If this character contacts one or more other characters, one contacted character suffers 1 damage. Then this character stops as normal. A character can be damaged by the superpower only once per turn. If this character has the stagger special condition, it loses it. So, in summary, this lets Juggernaut get pushed short, wrecking any terrain of size 3 or less in his way, and will deal 1 damage to a character that he contacts as long as this power hasn't already dealt damage to them this turn. Alright, so first the attack. I'm a bit iffy on this attack. 4 power for 2 extra dice is a pretty steep cost, especially when Marko has plenty of ways to spend his power, because the times you use this attack and don't roll a wild for the rush, well, you spent 4 power for 2 extra dice and that's it. And the reason I'm not more excited for its potential is because Nothing Stops the Juggernaut is missing some very important words. There isn't a this superpower can only be used once per turn qualifier here, which means that Juggernaut with enough power is the most mobile character in the game. So for 1 less power, you get the guaranteed effect you are hoping for on a wild, and your strike has enemy displacement and power building. So I won't say never, but the times that it makes sense to just do a strike with a guaranteed Nothing Stops the Juggernaut, rather than spending 4 power and keeping your fingers crossed that your dice won't betray you, the strike just makes more sense to me. Now, enough about that, because there are still 4 more powers to talk about. First is Nice Punch. It is a reactive ability that costs 1 and can be used when Cain would suffer damage. He then reduces the amount of damage suffered by 1 to a minimum of none. This is just like what we have seen on Crossbones and Kingpin, and it is a super strong ability that you probably won't underestimate if you have already played against it, but just in case, don't underestimate it. His first innate power is simply called Helmet, and it's a really good helmet because it stops Jugs from being pushed or advanced by the special effects of enemy mystic attacks or enemy superpowers. And given that he is size 4 in the new updates to the game, those effects are some of the few in the game that could have still messed with him. He's also immune to stun as well, but his other power is where things get really spicy. Unstoppable Momentum is another innate power, and it says, after this character resolves a move action during its activation, it gains 2 power. As well, the next attack made by this character, this activation, adds 3 extra dice into the attack. This ability can thankfully only trigger once per turn, but this opens up so many possibilities and really makes Juggernaut wholly unique in his playstyle, which is awesome. But before I go down the rabbit hole here, I want to talk about the changes on his injured side. His Mystic Defense drops down to a measly 2, and he also loses his innate helmet power. In exchange for its loss, though, he gains a new active power, Avatar of Sidorak. It costs 3 power and lets him throw a terrain feature or enemy character of size 3 or less and within range 2, medium, and like most other throws, it can only be used once per turn. So he gains a throw but loses out on his Mystic Defense and anti-control tech. Not an awful exchange, all things considered. So let's get into the good, the interesting, and the absurd. The good is pretty straightforward. Juggernaut is a really durable character. Being able to reduce damage to a minimum of 0 is really strong, along with some really nice defensive stats. Then, having a reward for moving in the form of extra attack dice and power means that him getting put out of position isn't actually all that bad for you. And because he is immune to stun, he basically can easily have access to 3 power a turn for Nothing Stops the Juggernaut. The interesting comes down to his unstoppable momentum and how it makes Juggernaut very unique from a math perspective. Because in most situations, you're probably going to be better off moving and then attacking than just doing 2 separate strikes with Juggernaut. Here's why. Here is a graph showing the amount of damage you can get through with a 5-dice strike into 3 defense dice without any modifiers on either side. So let's say we need to deal 4 damage to a target as the goal. Then on this graph we have 1 8-dice strike against 3 defense. All in all, the 2 single attacks have a bit better damage potential, but not a lot, and you are then missing out on 2 guaranteed power and a chance to get into a better position on the board. But I think it's about fair to say that about 50% of the characters in the game have some sort of defensive tech. And if you look at the core box alone, Spider-Man, Baron Zemo, Black Widow, Iron Man, Captain America, and Crossbones all have generic defensive tech, not to mention characters like Captain Marvel and Ultron. So now if you look at these new charts, it's the same amount of dice, but I gave the defender 2 defensive rerolls. The 8-dice strike chart doesn't change as much because when it comes to battling defensive tech, 1 big attack is better than multiple smaller attacks, because really, 2 5-dice attacks is like rolling 10 dice versus 6, as opposed to 8 versus 3. And while this is really fun and interesting with the math and stuff, what really matters is this means Juggernaut is going to be a pretty mobile character who is hitting about as hard as your average character. And the absurd part comes in with Nothing Stops the Juggernaut. It is both absurd because you can be tearing apart terrain to get to a target, both helping out Magneto's Brotherhood, but also ripping away cover and other options from your opponent. Then it is also absurd because while Juggernaut can bust through a size 3 taco truck, if he comes up against poor Rocket Raccoon, well, Rocket stops the Juggernaut and only takes 1 damage. Now, sure, this is good game design and balance, but it makes an odd situation on the table. So, all in all, Juggernaut is the evolution of probably what we would expect out of a 5-threat version of Crossbones would become. And he can take a hit, he can dish out a hit, and can be surprisingly mobile if given the right tools and situation. Before I get into affiliations, I do feel like one of his tactic cards that comes in his box is worth mentioning, and that is Do You Know Who I Am? It is an unaffiliated active team tactic card. Juggernaut has to spend 3 power to play it, but it allows him to throw an enemy character or terrain feature of size 4 or less that is within range 2 long. So if you're wondering why this card is worth mentioning, is it just gives Juggernaut a one-time throw effect, you're not entirely wrong. But there are 2 parts about it that are very unique and powerful. First is we have never seen a throw that throws a character long. Even on a character that moves medium, this is effectively, well, it just takes away an entire activation from them. Secondly, this is the first tactic card that allows you to throw an enemy model out of activation. So Juggernaut could just move up to a central point and hold on to his 3 power for the turn, wait for an enemy model to move up and contest it, and then Juggernaut can all but send them back to their own deployment zone. Now, admittedly, Brotherhood is an affiliation that is already struggling with all of the great tactic card options that they want to bring, but if your opponent does bring Do You Know Who I Am, and you don't keep it in mind, you will certainly know who Juggernaut is, and will be unlikely to forget him anytime soon. Now, speaking of Brotherhood, that is the only place that we currently can confirm that Juggernaut is affiliated, but Criminal Syndicate and Cabal seem like likely places for him to land as well. And of those, Brotherhood and Criminal Syndicate definitely seem like the best options. Now, while it will be 11th threat of your team, there is a reason Magneto always goes out of his way to recruit a non-mutant like Kane. And in this case, it's because the synergy is abundant, with Juggernaut wrecking terrain quite easily and even accidentally at times, just throwing out power to the rest of the team. Kingpin will also really love the Juggernaut for a few reasons. He has a durable body on his front side that will get to count as double on secures. Check. He has a large base so that he can make it very difficult to allow enemies to even get a chance to contest the different secure objectives when positioned well. Check. And finally, he is super mobile, so if an enemy only leaves one model on a secure thinking it's safe, well, Juggernaut can probably make it there and suddenly outscore the enemy. Check. Not to mention, he also has that out-of-activation throw that can toss anyone but Dormammu, at the moment at least. So, in a quick overview though, Juggernaut is a well-made, durable bruiser whose unique playstyle really opens up a lot of opportunities for what he can do that no one else really can. He has his own engine, and so he doesn't really need a specific leadership to get him going like some other characters, but rather he can help different leadership abilities get more bang for their buck with what he brings. So really he can end up going pretty much anywhere, no matter where you plug him in, he'll do pretty well. So this is one I'm really excited to get my hands on, both to paint, but also just to throw him in with my Brotherhood and start to do some work. And now, as promised, I'm going to throw it over to my future self to pull a random name from a video in November to see who will be getting a non-Ultimate Encounter expansion for Marvel Crisis Protocol. Alright, and here we go. We have Jordo Drogo. I've been trying to figure out a good way to store the team tactic cards as they are getting pretty unwieldy. Good tips. Well, based off that comment, I'm guessing this is from the 5 additional, I guess, good resources / products, things that AMG doesn't make that are still helpful for everybody else. So I will hunt you down and let you know. Thank you, Jordo, for commenting, and everybody for watching. Alright, well, congratulations. I will be reaching out shortly, or you can email me or message me on Facebook. And remember, if you want a chance at winning an expansion in the future, just comment on a video in a given month and be subscribed to the channel for your chance to win. This year has a lot of exciting things around the corner, both for the channel and the game, I'm sure, with whatever they are working on behind closed doors. If you've enjoyed my thoughts and are new to Marvel Crisis Protocol or the channel, hit the subscribe button for a weekly dose of MCP content in the form of reviews, battle reports, and more. And if you're a longtime viewer who wants to help support the channel, consider looking at the Guild's Patreon page. There is now a $1 a month option that helps me to get resources for things like a podcast that's going live next week, or a new website that's hopefully not too far away after that. So if you can spare the $12 a year, I would greatly appreciate it. As well, another way to support the channel is to check out our sponsor, TRex Games. If you're shopping online anyways, they have some great discounts to help you out. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.